Prologue. I signed the divorce papers with the same pen I'd used to sign my first $1 million deal. Cold, clinical, final. Julian Blackwood, they called me in the business magazines. Tech mogul, visionary CEO, the man who built Blackwood Industries from nothing into a $1 billion empire before his 30th birthday. What they didn't call me was fool. Not anymore. I slid the papers across the mahogany conference table to my ex-wife's lawyer, refusing to look at Victoria's perfectly composed face. 3 years of marriage reduced to signatures on legal documents and the division of assets. The penthouse, the vineyard, and half the stock portfolio, her lawyer recited. Mrs. Blackwood has been quite reasonable in her requests. Reasonable. That was one way to describe a woman who'd been feeding company secrets to our biggest competitor while sharing my bed. We're done here, I said, standing abruptly. My own lawyer, Stevens, gathered the papers with practiced efficiency. This wasn't his first road deal, and it certainly wouldn't be his last in Silicon Valley. Victoria finally spoke, her voice honey-sweet with just a hint of venom. Julian, darling, you don't have to be so dramatic about this. I turned to face her then, this woman I'd once believed I loved. Platinum blonde, surgically enhanced, every inch the trophy wife she'd set out to be. Beautiful on the outside, rotten at the core. Dramatic? I kept my voice level, emotionless. I'm being practical. Something you might have tried during our marriage. Her green eyes flashed with anger, but she maintained her composure, always the performer. You can't blame me for seeking affection elsewhere when you married your company instead of me. I can blame you for industrial espionage, I replied coldly. Sleeping with Richard Morrison was just a bonus betrayal. The room fell silent. Even the lawyers looked uncomfortable. Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the calculating woman beneath. You'll never find anyone who'll love you, Julian. Not really. You're too cold, too broken. Money is all you'll ever have. Her words hit their mark, but I didn't flinch. I'd learned not to show weakness years ago. Then money will have to be enough, I said simply. 6 months later, I stood in my corner office on the 40th floor of Blackwood Tower, watching the San Francisco Bay through floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled below me like a circuit board, all lights and connections and calculated precision. Victoria had been wrong about one thing. I wasn't broken. I was evolved. Love was a chemical reaction, nothing more. Temporary insanity that led to poor decision-making and compromised judgment. I'd built an empire by trusting logic over emotion, facts over feelings. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Blackwood? Your 2 o'clock is here. My 2 o'clock was supposed to be Anderson from marketing, presenting quarterly projections. Instead, my assistant Jennifer appeared in the doorway looking apologetic. Sir, we have a problem. The Morrison Industries hack, it's gone public. TechWire just broke the story about the data breach and the insider trading allegations. Ice formed in my stomach. Morrison Industries, Victoria's lover's company, the one she'd been feeding information to for months before our divorce. The FBI investigation I'd thought was buried was apparently very much alive. How bad? I asked. Bad. Stock price is already dropping. The board is in emergency session. And, sir, Jennifer hesitated. There are protesters gathering outside. Someone leaked your home address. Through my windows, I could see news vans pulling up to the building. In the age of social media, a scandal could destroy a company in hours. Get Stevens on the phone. We need the best crisis management team money can buy. Already tried, sir. Stevens recommends Apex Crisis Solutions. Says they're the only firm good enough to handle something this big. Jennifer paused. But sir, they're expensive. Very expensive. I almost laughed. After everything I'd built, everything I'd sacrificed, I was supposed to be worried about expensive? Get them on the phone. Whatever they cost, pay it. An hour later, I sat in my conference room watching my reputation burn in real time on every major news network. The board members who'd once hung on my every word now whispered in corners, calculating their exit strategies. Mr. Blackwood? Jennifer's voice came through the intercom. The crisis management consultant is here. Finally, someone who could clean up this mess so I could get back to what mattered, building my empire and forgetting that people like Victoria existed. Send them in. The door opened, and I looked up from my tablet expecting to see another overpriced suit with a Harvard MBA and a plan to spin this disaster into a comeback story. Instead, I saw her. She walked into my conference room like she owned it, shoulders back, head high, moving with the kind of confidence that couldn't be bought or faked. Her dark skin seemed to glow under the harsh conference room lights, and when her eyes met mine, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Surprise. She was beautiful, yes, but not in the polished, artificial way I was used to. This was natural beauty, earned beauty, the kind that came from strength rather than surgery. Mr. Blackwood, she said, her voice carrying a slight accent that spoke of somewhere far from Silicon Valley. I'm Kira Davis from Apex Crisis Solutions. We need to talk. Welcome back to Billionaire Soulful Stories, where love conquers all, even the most guarded hearts. I'm so glad you're here with me today. This story is about a man who thought he had it all figured out, until one remarkable woman showed him that some things can't be calculated or controlled. Don't forget to hit that like button and tell me in the comments, do you believe people can truly change? Or are we all just products of our past? Let's dive into Julian's transformation together. Chapter 1. The Collision. Kira Davis didn't look like she belonged in my sterile conference room, and that bothered me more than I cared to admit. She moved with purpose, setting down a sleek leather briefcase and pulling out a tablet with the efficiency of someone who'd done this dance 100 times before. But there was something else. A warmth that seemed to radiate from her despite the Arctic temperature I maintained in all my business dealings. Mr. Blackwood, she said, taking the seat across from me without waiting for an invitation. I've reviewed your situation. We have approximately 4 hours before the evening news cycle picks this up nationally, and maybe 12 hours before international markets react Monday morning. Straight to business, I appreciated that. And your recommendation? I leaned back in my chair, studying her. She had to be in her late 20s, but carried herself with the confidence of someone much older. Her accent was subtle but definitely there, musical, with rounded vowels that suggested somewhere in West Africa. Complete transparency, controlled narrative, and a fundamental shift in your public image. She slid a tablet across the table. Your current perception is that of a cold, calculating businessman who puts profit over people. That might work in Silicon Valley boardrooms, but it's toxic in the court of public opinion. I glanced at the screen showing real-time social media sentiment analysis. The numbers were ugly. I didn't build a billion-dollar company by worrying about what people think of me. No, she agreed, but you could lose it that way. The simple statement hung in the air between us. She was right, and we both knew it. What exactly are you proposing? Kira pulled up another screen. Humanize Julian Blackwood. Show the world there's a person behind the corporate machine. Community engagement, charitable initiatives, media appearances that showcase your personality instead of hiding it. My personality is what got me in trouble in the first place. Your ex-wife's betrayal got you in trouble, she corrected smoothly. Your reaction to it is what's keeping you there. I felt my jaw tighten. You don't know anything about my situation. I know Victoria Blackwood sold company secrets to Morrison Industries for 18 months while you were married. I know the FBI has been building a case that could implicate you as either a co-conspirator or a victim. I know your stock price has dropped 30% since this morning. Her dark eyes met mine steadily. And I know you're angry. Anger is unproductive. Anger is human. She leaned forward slightly. Mr. Blackwood, I've worked with tech CEOs, oil executives, pharmaceutical companies, and defense contractors. I've seen every type of crisis you can imagine, but I've never seen someone work so hard to convince the world they don't have a pulse. A pulse is a liability in business. A pulse is what separates you from the machines you build. Something in her tone made me look at her more carefully. There was steel beneath that warm exterior, forged by experience I couldn't begin to guess at. "Where are you from, Ms. Davis?" "Ghana, originally. I came to the U.S. when I was 16. "Alone?" A shadow crossed her features. "With my family. We had to leave quickly." She didn't elaborate, and something in her expression warned me not to push. But the brief glimpse of vulnerability humanized her in a way that made me uncomfortable. I preferred dealing with people I could categorize and predict. "How does your personal history qualify you to rehabilitate my image?" "Because I understand what it's like to lose everything and have to rebuild from nothing." Her voice was quiet but firm. "The difference is, I never forgot that other people matter in the process." The dig was subtle but unmistakable. "You think I don't care about other people?" "I think you've convinced yourself that not caring protects you from being hurt again." The words hit closer to home than I liked. "That's a very expensive therapy session, Ms. Davis. I hired you to manage a crisis, not psychoanalyze me." "They're the same thing in this case." She pulled up another document. "Your crisis isn't the data breach or the insider trading allegations. Your crisis is that the public sees you as exactly what your ex-wife turned you into, a man incapable of human connection." Maybe because it's true. Maybe because it's easier than taking the risk of being proven wrong. I stood abruptly, walking to the windows. The protesters had grown in number, their signs visible even from 40 floors up. Blackwood, Greedwood, and Tech Bros get rich, workers get screwed seemed to be the popular slogans. "What's your success rate, Ms. Davis?" 93% of my clients see improved public perception within 6 months. 87% see stock recovery within a year. "And the others?" "Usually refuse to follow my recommendations." I turned back to face her. "Which were?" "To stop hiding behind their wealth and start acting like human beings." The conference room door opened before I could respond. Jennifer stepped in, looking frazzled. "Mr. Blackwood, the board wants to meet with you immediately, and there are 3 more news vans outside." I looked at Kira, who was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. "Ms. Davis, I assume you have a contract?" "I do. Standard terms are a 6-month retainer, with performance bonuses tied to measurable improvements in public perception and financial recovery." "Fine. Jennifer, have legal review whatever she gives them and get it signed today." I grabbed my jacket from the back of my chair. "I have a board meeting to attend." "How quickly can you start?" "I already have." Kira was typing rapidly on her tablet. "By the time you're done with your board meeting, you'll have a preliminary action plan and a media strategy for the next 72 hours. "Just like that?" She looked up at me, and for a moment, I saw something that looked almost like sympathy in her dark eyes. "Mr. Blackwood, I've been working on your case since the story broke this morning. Apex Crisis Solutions doesn't wait for contracts to start saving our clients' reputations." "Why?" "Because sometimes people need saving whether they think they deserve it or not." The words followed me down the hallway as I headed to what was likely to be the most hostile board meeting of my career. Something about Kira Davis unsettled me, though I couldn't pinpoint exactly what. Maybe it was the way she looked at me, not with the calculated interest of someone trying to get something from me, or the barely concealed fear most people had around billionaires. She looked at me like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe it was just that she was the first person in months who'd talked to me like I was a human being instead of a bank account. Either way, I had bigger problems to worry about than my reaction to my crisis management consultant. The board was waiting, the media was circling, and my empire was under attack. But as I stepped into the elevator, I couldn't shake the feeling that Kira Davis was going to be more dangerous to my carefully constructed walls than any business crisis ever could be. Chapter 2. The Professional Dance. The board meeting was exactly as brutal as I'd expected. "Julian, we need to discuss your leadership." Harold Morrison, No relation to Richard Morrison, thankfully, said the moment I walked into the boardroom. The 12 faces around the mahogany table ranged from concerned to openly hostile. My leadership built this company, I replied, taking my seat at the head of the table. And your personal drama is destroying it, snapped Rebecca Chen, our chief financial officer. Stock is down 35% and falling. Our biggest clients are asking questions about data security. The Pentagon is reviewing our defense contracts. I listened to 40 minutes of accusations, demands for my resignation, and threats of a hostile takeover. When they finally finished, I stood calmly. I've hired the best crisis management firm in the country. We'll weather this storm, like we've weathered every other challenge. If anyone wants to sell their shares, now's the time. Otherwise, trust the process that made us all very wealthy. Walking back to my office, I found Kira exactly where I'd left her, but now surrounded by laptops, tablets, and printed documents spread across my conference table like a war room. "How did it go?" she asked without looking up. "Half the board wants me gone. The other half wants to wait and see if you can work miracles." "I don't work miracles, Mr. Blackwood. I work with what I have." She gestured to a chair. "Sit. We need to talk about your schedule for the next week." "My schedule is handled by Jennifer." "Not anymore. For the next 6 months, your public appearances go through me." She pulled up a calendar on her tablet. "Tomorrow morning, you're visiting the Oakland Community Center to announce a new scholarship program for underprivileged students interested in technology careers." "I don't have a scholarship program." "You do now. Blackwood Industries just committed $5 million over 5 years. She slid a document across the table. "Legal already drafted the paperwork." I stared at her. "You committed my company to $5 million without consulting me?" "I told you the strategy required community engagement and charitable initiatives. This kills 2 birds with 1 stone, demonstrates social responsibility, and gets you in front of cameras looking like something other than a corporate robot." "I don't do well with people." "You'll learn." She stood and walked to the whiteboard, uncapping a marker. "Tell me about your childhood." "Excuse me?" "Your background. Where you grew up, family situation, formative experiences. I need to understand who Julian Blackwood was before he became a billionaire." "That's not relevant to managing this crisis." "Everything is relevant." She wrote Julian Blackwood at the top of the board. "The media is painting you as a spoiled tech bro who inherited daddy's money and stumbled into success. True or false?" "False." "Then tell me the truth." I hesitated. Talking about my past wasn't something I did, ever. But something in Kira's expression, patient, professional, but genuinely interested, made me consider it. "I grew up in Oakland. Single mother, 3 jobs, government assistance when times were really bad." She wrote Oakland and single mother on the board. "Go on." "I built my first computer from parts I found in dumpsters behind tech companies. Taught myself to code using library books and stolen Wi-Fi." "Stolen Wi-Fi?" "We couldn't afford internet. I used to sit outside the public library after hours with my laptop." Kira's marker paused. "How old were you?" 12 when I built the computer. 14 when I wrote my first program that actually worked." She turned to face me fully. "What happened to your mother?" "She died when I was 22. Cancer. Couldn't afford the treatments that might have saved her." The words came out flat, emotionless. I'd learned long ago not to dwell on things I couldn't change. "Is that why you built the company?" "I built the company to make money. Money is security. Security is freedom." "Security from what?" "From ever being powerless again." Kira set down the marker and studied me for a long moment. "Mr. Blackwood, that's the most honest thing you've said since I walked into this room. Don't psychoanalyze me, Ms. Davis." "I'm not. I'm trying to understand the man behind the walls so I can show him to the world." She gestured to the board. "This is your real story. Brilliant kid from nothing builds tech empire, loses sight of his values after personal betrayal, needs to remember why he started this journey in the first place." And if I don't want the world to know my real story? Then you'll lose everything you worked for because the fake story isn't working anymore. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. What is it? Victoria just gave an exclusive interview to TechWire. She's claiming you threatened her during the divorce proceedings and that she feared for her safety. Ice formed in my stomach. That's a lie. I know, but lies travel faster than truth in the media age. She was already typing rapidly. We need to get ahead of this. The community center event is even more important now. I'm not good with people, especially children. Why not? I don't know how to talk to them. You were one once. Talk to them like you wished someone had talked to you. The simplicity of the statement caught me off guard. It's not that easy. Nothing worthwhile is easy, Mr. Blackwood. She gathered her papers. I'm going home to prepare for tomorrow. Jennifer has your briefing materials and schedule. Try to get some sleep. You're going to need it. She was halfway to the door when I called out, Ms. Davis? Yes? Why did you leave Ghana? She turned back to me, and for a moment her professional mask slipped completely. I saw something raw and painful in her dark eyes. My father was a journalist who wrote about government corruption. One night men came to our house with guns. They told us we had 24 hours to leave the country or they'd kill the whole family. She paused. We left with 2 suitcases and the equivalent of $300 American. How did you end up here? My father's colleague in Chicago sponsored us for asylum. I was 16, spoke broken English, and had no idea how anything worked in America. Spent my first year cleaning office buildings at night and going to high school during the day. That must have been difficult. It was necessary. She straightened her shoulders. When you lose everything, Mr. Blackwood, you learn what you're really made of. The question is whether that experience makes you stronger or just makes you afraid. After she left, I sat alone in my conference room staring at the whiteboard. In her neat handwriting, she'd mapped out a life I'd spent years trying to forget. The poverty, the struggle, the dreams of a boy who thought money could solve everything. Maybe it could. Maybe it had. But looking at the words on that board, I realized something I'd never admitted to myself. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being the kid who built computers from garbage and dreams. I'd become exactly what Victoria accused me of being: cold, calculating, disconnected from everything that made life worth living. The question was whether it was too late to find my way back. I have to ask, have you ever met someone who saw right through all your defenses from day one? Someone who called you out on your patterns and made you question everything you thought you knew about yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Chapter 3. The Breakthrough. The Oakland Community Center looked exactly like the kind of place I would have needed as a kid. Faded paint, mismatched furniture, and the smell of industrial disinfectant mixed with hope. Kids ranging from 8 to 18 clustered around outdated computers, their faces lit with the same hunger for knowledge I remembered feeling at their age. Mr. Blackwood? A woman approached us as Kira and I entered. I'm Maria Santos, the center director. We're so grateful for your visit today. I nodded, feeling completely out of place in my $1,000 suit. Kira had insisted I dress down, but apparently my version of casual still screamed wealth. The children are excited to meet you, Maria continued, leading us toward a computer lab. Some of them have been working on projects to show you. As we walked through the hallway lined with artwork and achievement certificates, I caught fragments of conversations in Spanish and English, laughter from a basketball court, and the distinctive sound of keyboards clicking. Nervous? Kira asked quietly. I don't get nervous. Your jaw is clenched so tight I'm surprised your teeth haven't cracked. Before I could respond, we entered the computer lab. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward us, ranging from curious to skeptical to openly awed. Everyone, Maria announced. This is Mr. Julian Blackwood from Blackwood Industries. Silence. Then a girl who couldn't have been more than 10 raised her hand. Yes, Maya? Maria encouraged. Are you really worth $1 billion? Direct. I appreciated that. More or less. Why do you want to give us money? The question caught me off guard. I glanced at Kira, who was watching me with an expression that clearly said, "You're on your own." "What's your name?" I asked the girl. "Maya Rodriguez." "What do you want to be when you grow up, Maya?" "A video game designer, but my mom says we can't afford college." Something twisted in my chest. "I wanted to build computers when I was your age. My mom said the same thing." I found myself walking closer to her workstation. "What are you working on?" Maya's face lit up. "A puzzle game about cleaning up the ocean. You have to program fish to eat plastic and turn it into coral reefs." "Can you show me?" For the next hour, I forgot about cameras, media strategy, and stock prices. Maya walked me through her game, explaining the coding logic with the kind of enthusiasm I hadn't felt in years. Other kids gathered around sharing their projects, apps to help elderly people take medication, websites for local businesses, programs to track food waste. "This is incredible work," I told them honestly. "You're all thinking about real problems and trying to solve them. That's what the best programmers do." A teenager named Carlos raised his hand. "Mr. Blackwood, my dad says rich people only help poor people when there's something in it for them. What's in it for you?" The brutal honesty of the question silenced the room. I could feel Kira's eyes on me, waiting to see how I'd respond. "Your dad's not wrong," I said finally. "A lot of wealthy people do charity for tax breaks or good publicity, but I'm here because 20 years ago, I was sitting in a place just like this, dreaming about building something that mattered." I looked around the room at these kids who reminded me so much of myself. I got lucky. I had talent. I worked hard. And I caught some breaks. But mostly, I got angry. "Angry about what?" Maya asked. "Angry that being poor meant I couldn't afford the tools I needed to learn. Angry that my mom worked 3 jobs and still couldn't pay for my computer classes. Angry that having money seemed more important than having ideas." The room was completely quiet now. So I decided to get rich enough that money would never be a problem again. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that the point wasn't just to accumulate wealth. It was to make sure other kids like me wouldn't have to choose between their dreams and their circumstances. Carlos nodded slowly. "So you're trying to fix what made you angry?" "I'm trying to remember what made me care in the first place." After the formal presentation and photo opportunities, Kira and I sat in my car outside the community center. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. "That wasn't what I expected," she said finally. "What did you expect?" "The usual corporate PR routine. Scripted answers, fake enthusiasm, minimal actual engagement. And instead? Instead, I watched you remember who you used to be." I stared out the window at the center, where kids were still visible through the windows, working on their projects with renewed energy. "I haven't thought about those days in years," I admitted. Being hungry, staying up all night because the library's Wi-Fi reached the parking lot, teaching myself to code because I couldn't afford classes. "Why did you stop thinking about it?" "Because it hurt too much. Because remembering where I came from meant acknowledging how far I'd drifted from why I started this journey." Kira was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something about my first year in America?" I nodded. I was so focused on surviving, on fitting in, on proving I belonged here, that I almost lost everything that made me who I was. I stopped speaking Twi, stopped cooking Ghanaian food, stopped telling people where I was really from. What changed? A teacher noticed I was struggling. Not with academics, I was at the top of my class. But I was disappearing into myself, trying so hard to be American that I forgot being Ghanaian was what made me strong. She turned to face me. She told me something I'll never forget. "Your past isn't something to overcome, Kira. It's the foundation everything else is built on." And you believe that? I believe that the boy who built computers from garbage and dreams is still inside the man who built $1 billion empire. The question is whether you're going to let him back out. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Stock up 8% since community center story hit social media. Board meeting moved to next week." I showed Kira the message. She smiled. the first genuine smile I'd seen from her. See? People want to connect with the real you. They're just tired of waiting for him to show up. The real me is complicated. The real you is human. That's not complicated. It's just inconvenient for someone who spent years pretending otherwise. We drove back to the office in comfortable silence, but my mind was racing. Something had shifted during those conversations with the kids. For the first time in months, I'd felt useful. Not wealthy, not powerful. Useful. Ms. Davis? Kira. We've moved past formalities, don't you think? Kira. Her name felt different in my mouth. Warmer. Thank you. For today. Don't thank me yet. This was the easy part. What's the hard part? She looked at me with those dark eyes that seemed to see everything I tried to hide. The hard part is deciding whether you want to keep being the man who remembers why he started this journey, or go back to being the man who's forgotten. And if I choose to remember, then you might discover that the thing you've been protecting yourself from, caring about other people, is actually the thing that makes all the success worthwhile. Back in my office, I found myself staring at the whiteboard where Kira had mapped out my life story. But now, instead of just seeing a list of facts, I saw a pattern. Every major breakthrough in my career had come from trying to solve a problem that mattered to me personally. The security software that made my first million came from wanting to protect people's personal information after my mother's identity was stolen. The educational platform that took the company global came from remembering how hard it was to learn programming without proper resources. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped solving problems and started accumulating solutions. I'd stopped asking, "Why does this matter?" and started asking, "How much will this make?" Victoria had been right about one thing. I had married my company instead of her. But maybe the problem wasn't that I cared too much about work. Maybe the problem was that I'd stopped caring about why the work mattered in the first place. My phone rang, Kira's name on the screen. "Having second thoughts?" she asked without preamble. "Why would you think that?" "Because transformation is terrifying, and you strike me as someone who doesn't like being scared." She was right. But for the first time in years, being scared felt like the beginning of something rather than the end. "What's the next step?" "Tomorrow we're visiting Mercy General Hospital. You're announcing a new partnership to provide free medical care for uninsured tech workers." "I don't have a..." "You do now. Blackwood Industries just committed $2 million annually for 5 years. I should have been angry about her presumption. Instead, I found myself asking, why medical care? Because sometimes the best way to heal yourself is to help heal other people. The line went quiet for a moment. "Kira?" "Yes?" "What made you believe I could change?" "The same thing that made you build computers from garbage," she said softly. "You don't know how to give up on things that matter." After she hung up, I sat in my office as the sun set over San Francisco Bay, thinking about a 10-year-old girl who wanted to program fish to save the ocean, and a woman who'd lost everything and built it back from nothing, and the boy I used to be who thought technology could fix the world. Maybe it still could. Maybe I still could. But first I had to remember what needed fixing. Chapter 4. The Crisis. 3 weeks into working with Kira, I thought I had everything under control. Stock prices had stabilized. Media coverage was shifting from hostile to cautiously optimistic. The board had backed down from their coup attempt. Even Victoria's accusations were losing steam as more people came forward with positive stories about my character. I should have known it was too easy. "We have a problem," Kira said, bursting into my office without knocking. It was 7 in the morning, and she looked like she hadn't slept. "Good morning to you too," I said, looking up from my coffee and quarterly reports. "Julian, this is serious." She set her laptop on my desk, turning it toward me. "Someone leaked your personal financial records to the press." My blood turned to ice as I scanned the headlines. Blackwood's secret offshore accounts revealed. Tech CEO's tax avoidance schemes exposed. Billionaire's hidden assets threaten charity claims. This is impossible. My financial records are sealed by attorney-client privilege. Not anymore. Kira pulled up another tab. Someone with access to your divorce proceedings leaked everything. Bank statements, investment portfolios, tax returns going back 7 years. I scrolled through the documents, recognizing them from my divorce discovery process. Victoria's legal team had demanded extensive financial disclosure, and now every private detail of my wealth was splashed across the internet. How bad is it? Bad. The headlines make it look like you've been hiding money while claiming to be philanthropic. Stock futures are already dropping in overseas markets. My phone started ringing. The board, investors, clients, everyone who'd started believing in the new Julian Blackwood narrative. Who leaked this? I'm working on that, but Julian, there's more. Kira's expression was grim. The leak didn't just include financial records. There are personal emails, text messages, photos from your phone backup. What kind of photos? Pictures of your house, your cars, your art collection, personal messages between you and your staff, and... She hesitated. Private communications between us. My stomach dropped. What communications? Text messages about strategy, emails about your schedule, photos from the community center event. She met my eyes. They're taking everything out of context, making it look like this whole rehabilitation campaign was calculated manipulation. I stared at the screen, watching my carefully rebuilt reputation crumble in real time. Social media was exploding with accusations of fake charity, manufactured empathy, and calculated image management. They're saying I hired you to manipulate public opinion, which is technically true. Is it? I looked at her sharply. Is that what this has been? Manipulation? Something flickered across Kira's face. What do you think? I think someone is trying very hard to destroy me, and they're using you to do it. Julian, no, think about it. Who has access to both my financial records and our private communications? Who benefits from making this look like a calculated PR campaign? Kira was quiet for a long moment. Victoria, who probably planted recording devices in our usual meeting locations, who had access to my phone through our shared cloud account that I never changed after the divorce. My intercom buzzed. Mr. Blackwood, the FBI is here to see you. Kira and I looked at each other. This is moving too fast, she said. Professional leaks don't usually trigger federal investigations unless there's something criminal in the leaked documents, I finished. Agent Morrison, yet another Morrison, though this one wore a badge instead of a business suit, looked tired as he sat across from us in my conference room. Mr. Blackwood, I'm sure you're aware why we're here. The leaked financial documents. Specifically the offshore accounts and shell companies that weren't disclosed in your original FBI interview about the Victoria Blackwood matter. My lawyer Stevens, who'd arrived 20 minutes after the FBI, leaned forward. Agent Morrison, my client disclosed all relevant financial information during the original investigation. Relevant to the insider trading case, yes. But these new documents suggest Mr. Blackwood may have been involved in additional financial crimes. Such as? Money laundering, tax evasion, and potentially funding activities that violate international sanctions. The words hit like physical blows. That's impossible. Mr. Blackwood, these documents show transfers of significant amounts of money to accounts in countries with known terrorist financing operations. Kira spoke up for the first time. Agent Morrison, may I see the specific transactions you're referring to? He slid a folder across the table. Kira reviewed the documents quickly, her expression growing more concerned with each page. Julian, she said quietly, these transactions. When did you authorize these transfers? I didn't. I looked at the account numbers, the amounts, the dates. I've never seen these accounts before in my life. But they're linked to your tax identification number. Then someone created false accounts using my information. Agent Morrison looked skeptical. Mr. Blackwood, financial fraud of this magnitude requires sophisticated knowledge of international banking systems. Who has access to your personal financial information? The answer hung in the air between us. Stevens answered what we were all thinking. His ex-wife had complete access to all financial accounts during their marriage. The divorce proceedings required full disclosure of assets, including account numbers and routing information. And she's currently dating Richard Morrison, whose company has extensive international business relationships, Kira added. We'll need to investigate that connection, Agent Morrison said. In the meantime, Mr. Blackwood, I'm afraid we'll need to freeze your assets pending the outcome of this investigation. All of them? All domestic accounts, yes. You'll have access to basic living expenses, but business operations will be severely limited. After the FBI left, I sat in my conference room with Kira and Stevens, staring at the frozen account notifications on my phone. How long will this take to resolve? I asked. Months, minimum, Stevens said. Financial crimes investigations are slow, especially when they involve international transactions. What about the company? You have enough in operating accounts to maintain basic functions for maybe 6 weeks. After that, he shrugged helplessly. Kira had been unusually quiet since the FBI left. Julian, there's something we need to discuss. What? My contract with you. If your accounts are frozen, you can't pay Apex Crisis Solutions. I should probably transfer to another case. The words hit harder than the FBI investigation. You're abandoning me. I'm being practical. You can't afford my services, and frankly, this situation is beyond crisis management now. You need a criminal defense attorney, not a PR consultant. So that's it? When things get difficult, you walk away? When things become impossible, I prioritize my other clients. I stood abruptly, anger flooding through me. Of course, I should have expected this. Everyone has a price, right? Everyone abandons ship when the water gets rough. That's not fair, isn't it? You spent 3 weeks telling me to open up, to trust people, to remember why I started this journey. And the second it becomes inconvenient for you, you're gone. Kira's dark eyes flashed with anger. You want to know why I'm really leaving, Julian? Because I'm tired of watching you sabotage yourself. I'm not sabotaging anything. I'm being framed. By Victoria, yes. But you're making it easy for her. She stood to face me. You want to know what I think really happened? I think Victoria has been planning this for months. I think she leaked your financial information strategically, knowing it would trigger an investigation that would freeze your assets and force you back into isolation. Then why are you helping her by leaving? Because the Julian Blackwood who hired me 3 weeks ago would have already figured out how to fight back. But you're so busy feeling sorry for yourself that you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking fine. You're thinking like a victim. The Julian who built computers from garbage wouldn't wait for the FBI to clear his name. He'd prove his innocence himself. The words stung because they were true. And how exactly do you suggest I do that with frozen assets and federal investigators breathing down my neck? The same way you built this company, with intelligence, determination, and the help of people who believe in you. People like you. People like the kids at that community center who think you're a hero. People like Maria Santos, who's been fielding calls from parents asking if the scholarship program is still happening. People like your employees who are scared they're going to lose their jobs because their CEO is giving up. She gathered her papers from the table. I'll finish out the week. Help transition your case to someone else. But Julian, the man I watched connect with those kids, the man who remembered why he started this journey, he wouldn't go down without a fight. After she left, I sat alone in my conference room, surrounded by the wreckage of everything I'd built. In 3 weeks, I'd gone from cynical billionaire to hopeful philanthropist to accused criminal. But Kira was right about one thing. The boy who'd taught himself to code with stolen Wi-Fi wouldn't have sat in a conference room feeling sorry for himself. He would have started hacking. I opened my laptop and began to work. Chapter 5. The New Foundation. For 3 days, I lived like I was 16 again. I slept in my office, ordered takeout, and dove into code like my life depended on it. Because it did. Using skills I hadn't touched in years, I began tracing the digital breadcrumbs of my financial destruction. The fake offshore accounts were sophisticated but not perfect. Someone had used my tax identification number to create shell companies, but they'd made mistakes. Tiny inconsistencies in the paperwork, IP addresses that didn't match the supposed locations, timing patterns that revealed automation. "You look terrible," Kira said, walking into my office Thursday morning. I looked up from my screens, realizing I hadn't showered or changed clothes in 2 days. "I thought you were transferring to another case." "I am. After I finish this." She set a cup of coffee on my desk. "What have you found?" "Proof. Victoria didn't just steal my financial information. She created an entire false identity using my credentials." I pulled up a screen showing network traffic analysis. "Look at this. Every transaction to those suspicious accounts was initiated from the same IP address." "Where?" "Richard Morrison's offices in downtown San Francisco. Victoria has been using his company's infrastructure to create fraudulent financial records." Kira leaned over my shoulder to examine the data, her proximity reminding me how much I'd missed her presence over the past few days. "This is brilliant work, Julian. But will the FBI accept digital evidence from the person being investigated?" "Not from me, but they might accept it from an independent cybersecurity consultant." I turned to look at her. Someone with an impeccable reputation and no financial stake in the outcome. "You want me to present your evidence to the FBI?" "I want you to verify my evidence independently and present your own findings." Kira was quiet for a long moment. "Why should I help you? You accused me of abandoning you when things got tough." "Because you were right. The man who built this company from nothing wouldn't give up. And because—" I hesitated, then pushed forward. "Because I've realized something over the past few days." "What?" "You're the first person in years who's challenged me to be better instead of just accepting who I am. You saw through every wall I'd built, called me out on every excuse, and refused to let me hide behind my money or my cynicism." I stood up, facing her fully. 3 weeks ago, I thought love was a chemical reaction. I thought caring about people was a liability. I thought trust was weakness. And now? Now I think maybe the problem isn't that love doesn't exist. Maybe the problem is that I was looking for it in all the wrong places. Kira's dark eyes searched my face. "Julian, I'm not asking you to feel anything you don't feel. I'm asking you to help me prove my innocence so I can spend whatever time I have left trying to be the man you helped me remember I could be. And if I say no, then I'll respect that decision. But I'll always be grateful that you showed me it was possible to tear down walls instead of just building higher ones." She was quiet for so long I thought she was going to refuse. Finally, she nodded. "Show me everything." For the next 6 hours, we worked side by side like we had that first week, her experience in crisis management combining with my technical skills to build an airtight case against Victoria and Richard Morrison. "The pattern is clear," Kira said, reviewing our compiled evidence. "They've been planning this for at least 8 months, creating the fake accounts, establishing the paper trail, waiting for the right moment to trigger an investigation. The question is why? Victoria got half my assets in the divorce. Why risk federal charges for more? Because half of $1 billion fortune isn't enough when the other half is growing faster than her half." Kira pulled up Victoria's financial records. "She's been spending money faster than her divorce settlement can sustain. The Morrison Industries stock she bought with insider information isn't performing as expected. So she needed to destroy me completely to get access to the company assets. And she almost succeeded." My phone rang, Agent Morrison's name on the screen. "Mr. Blackwood, we need you to come in for additional questioning." "About what?" "We've received new evidence in your case. Someone anonymously submitted a comprehensive analysis of the financial transactions in question." I looked at Kira, who nodded. "I'll be there in an hour." 2 hours later, I walked out of the FBI field office a free man. The anonymous cybersecurity analysis, submitted by Davis Technical Consulting, had provided enough evidence for the FBI to freeze Victoria's assets and issue warrants for both her and Richard Morrison. Kira was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against her car. "How does it feel to be vindicated?" she asked. "Like I can finally breathe again." I walked toward her. "Thank you. For everything." "Don't thank me yet. You still have a company to save and a reputation to rebuild." "We have a company to save," I corrected. "If you're interested." "In what?" "I'm offering you a permanent position. Chief Operating Officer, equal partnership, whatever title you want. Help me build something that matters." Kira smiled. That same genuine smile I'd seen after the community center visit. "I already have a job. Apex Crisis Solutions. Davis Technical Consulting. I'm starting my own firm. Turns out I'm pretty good at this cybersecurity analysis thing." I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in weeks. "In that case, I'd like to be your first client. I need someone to overhaul our entire digital security infrastructure. That's going to be expensive. I can afford it. Turns out being framed for money laundering is great for stock prices once you're exonerated." We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the San Francisco skyline stretching out behind us. "Julian?" "Yes?" "That thing you said about looking for love in all the wrong places?" My heart stopped. "Yes? Maybe the problem isn't where you were looking. Maybe the problem is that you stopped believing it was worth looking for." She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, see the gold flecks in her dark eyes. "And do you think it's worth looking for?" "I think," she said softly, "that love isn't a chemical reaction or a business transaction or a liability to be managed. I think it's a choice you make every day to see the best in someone, even when they can't see it in themselves. And if someone chose to see the best in you, then maybe they'd discover that the woman who lost everything and built it back from nothing believes in second chances." I reached up to cup her face in my hands. "Even for cynical billionaires who forgot how to be human? Especially for them." When I kissed her, it felt like coming home to a place I'd never been before, like finding something I hadn't known I was looking for. 6 months later, I stood in the same community center where Kira had first challenged me to remember who I used to be. But this time, instead of announcing a scholarship program, I was here for Maya Rodriguez's graduation from our coding boot camp. "Mr. Blackwood?" Maya called out, running toward me with a certificate in her hand. "Look, I finished the advanced programming course. I'm proud of you, Maya. What's next?" "College. I got accepted to Berkeley with a full scholarship. And I'm going to study environmental engineering so I can build real programs to clean up the ocean." As I watched Maya celebrate with her family, I felt an arm slip around my waist. Kira appeared beside me, radiant in a simple sundress. "Happy?" she asked. "Happy?" I confirmed, pulling her closer. "Good, because I have something to tell you." "What?" She held up her left hand where a simple diamond ring caught the afternoon light. "I found this in my coffee cup this morning, along with a note that said, 'For the woman who taught me that love isn't weakness, it's the strongest foundation of all.'" I turned to face her fully. "And what did you think of the note?" "I thought," she said, stepping into my arms, "that the man who wrote it finally figured out the difference between building walls and building a home." Is that a yes? That's a yes to everything, Julian. To partnership, to love, to building something beautiful together. As I kissed my future wife in a community center full of kids who reminded me why success should never be selfish, I realized Victoria had been wrong about one thing. I would never be alone again, because I'd finally learned the difference between being rich and being wealthy. Rich was money in the bank. Wealthy was having people in your life who saw your worth even when your accounts were frozen. And Kira Davis had made me the wealthiest man in the world. Thank you so much for listening to The Millionaire Who Never Believed in Love, until he met her here, on Billionaire Soulful Stories. I hope Julian and Kira's journey reminded you that sometimes the walls we build to protect ourselves are the very things keeping us from what we need most. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, what's the one thing that helped you believe in love again? I'll see you next time for another soulful story that proves love really can transform even the most guarded hearts. Until then, keep believing that everyone deserves a second chance at happiness.